Welcome to Native Bidaské, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
Welcome to another episode of Native Bidaské. I'm Levi Rickert, publisher and editor of Native News Online. Today is May 5th, and before we talk with our special guest today, we do want to reference today is the official day of recognition of missing and murdered Indigenous people across the United States. And some of you may call it MMIW, women, but in recent years, the P has been added for people because we know that it's a problem that is very real in Indian country, and we want to bring recognition to it today from Native News Online. So, and with me in the studio is Jenna, our senior reporter, who has joined me before. Hey, Jenna, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Levi?
I am doing great, and I know you were out traveling in Washington State last week covering things for Native News Online. You're back in New York, so we're happy that you're back safely. Why don't you introduce our guests today?
Yeah, so here we have Larissa FastHorse. And Larissa, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Larissa FastHorse from the Sicangu Lakota Nation, and I'm actually talking to you from our lands, from the Black Hills, the lands of the Ocheti Shakowee.
Nice. And the reason that we have Larissa on today, and I'm sure all of you have heard her names in the headlines recently, but last month, about 2 weeks ago, I guess, Larissa, her play called The Thanksgiving Play debuted on Broadway. And she is the second ever Native person to have a play on Broadway.
All right.
I was actually there on opening night. I was in the front row. I got splattered by blood, Larissa.
Seriously.
And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I have a lot to say about it. But first, I guess, I wonder how you would explain the play to people that haven't seen it. How do you summarize what this art that you wrote is?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to summarize it. The easiest way I'd say is this play is about 4 white presenting folks who are trying to create a culturally specific Thanksgiving play for children that also recognizes Native American Heritage Month without any Native Americans in it, though. And so they are people trying so hard to do the right thing that they end up really doing everything wrong.
Yeah. That's a really good summary.
And it's a comedy.
How does it feel to be like the second Native American to have a play on Broadway in Britain? I want first of all, I want to congratulate you, but how does it feel?
Yeah, I mean it's like it's so many things in our lives, right? It's happy, sad. Like the last Native playwright that we know of was Lynn Riggs. He plays on Broadway play. And so now we're, 80 years later before we finally have another Native American playwright, and this time a female, which I'm thrilled about. And I'm thrilled. So like that kind of bums me out, but I'm trying to focus on the positive. At least we're here and people are seeing us again. It becomes a regular and normal thing that we aren't even counting anymore because there've been so many. That's my hope. And all the work I do is about trying to open up doors and hold the door open.
Larissa, you mentioned so the evolution of this play being that you were told that your plays were uncastable because of any Native representation. So then you went the opposite direction of zero Native representation. But as I was watching the Thanksgiving play, I kept waiting for an Indigenous character, as I'm sure a lot of viewers do, especially, given the name, knowing that you were the playwright. And I wonder if it at any point in the creation of it, you considered including an Indigenous cast member, or that was the antithesis of the point. The point was that they couldn't do this play without any representation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way the play is done now is much more honest, right? It's more real to what the world is like. That most of the time people are trying and struggling so hard to represent us without us and without using our voices at all. And I think that's the majority. Unfortunately, still the majority of work is done that way, where they're representing us without our voices at all, and speaking for us without us present. And I think that's actually it's a bummer, but it's true. And I think it's more powerful to the point I was trying to make, with this play, and to the point of what it's like in the world. I also, am really proud that actually a lot of Native actresses have been in this play,
Oh,
and have gotten their union cards from it by, just light
cool.
skinned folk who can pass for white. And that's great.
Yeah, that is great. That is great. Yeah, right, because there's been several iterations of it since 2018, right?
So
Um,
many. Yeah. Literally
one of
hundreds.
yeah, the most produced show. That's cool.
Mhm.
That's really cool that there have been Native folks that have been in it. One of my favorite parts of the play, and I suspect many others, it was the interspersion of the videos. So, like the mixed mediums for viewers that haven't seen the play, there are, almost like intermissions, and it starts that way too, where a green screen comes down and you see a video that was directed by you, Larissa, right? Or not directed by you, but created by
Mm,
you.
yeah.
Of school children. I understand they were local school children in New York or in Brooklyn that are singing like nursery rhymes and these little songs around Thanksgiving, and so um, and it was so enjoyable because it was so earnest. I mean, they're children, they're vulnerable. Then it also just really drives this point home of like this is how kids learn about Thanksgiving. This is how I learned about Thanksgiving as a as a child, and I wonder if you can say a bit about that that decision to include mixed mediums and like cast these kids, teach them these songs. Like, what was that about for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when I started doing research on the play, I found this treasure trove, if you will, of horrible material online that's still being done in schools. Everything you see in what I call these interstitial scenes, the scenes with the children, even the comments from teachers and parents and things are taken directly off the internet. My
Mhm.
publisher made me change the websites to protect people, but
Yeah.
they're exactly from the internet within the last 10 years, and many of them much more recent. So we originally really wanted, because Broadway, and we have wanted to really make the scope of this big, we wanted to do it with live children, but because of COVID restrictions, et cetera, it just became impossible.
Um,
And to, have enough children to really make it work. So Rachel Chapkin came up with these amazing, she's my director, these incredible films that you saw. Because of equity rules, the union, we were not allowed to audition the kids or rehearse with them ahead of time. And that was actually kind of amazing because then we ended up with real kids who were just being themselves,
right.
and I think that's where you really get to feel that from them. These are, this is the future and this is what we're doing to them. By having these songs, and the kids understood. We talked a lot with them, when we got there, about that these are real things that adults are having you do, and that they're not okay, and that you children get to show the adults that what they're doing to you, and that you don't want to do that anymore. And it was really lovely to have those discussions with them, and they really got it, and they're like, we're going to
Mhm.
teach the adults to do better, and I think they really
Wow.
do, because it keeps the reality of why these things matter, things that seem really innocuous and small. Like the first song is about well, the 9 days of Thanksgiving. In our version, it was a few more, it was 10 for some reason. um and it's about all the things the pilgrims gave to the Indians, which we think sounds, oh, well, that's all right, it's about sharing. But suddenly you realize, oh, we're teaching little teeny kids, preschool kids, to assume that they should take everything from the Indians, including their homes, their shoes, like it's wild, all the stuff that's in
Yeah.
the song, that we should just take all of it and it's ours and we get to have it. And we're teaching that to little teeny tiny kids still all the time. And we think it's funny and fun and cute. And it's really not. And, my goal, obviously, with everything as a Native person, is always thinking of the next generations, right?
Mhm.
And what are we telling them and how are we changing things for them?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's so interesting that those kids were just live acting pretty much.
We got it a couple times. That's it.
Yeah, and you could see that. I mean, they're just kids, like, some of them are distracted or they don't know the words, they're, like, mouthing it. It's
How old are these children?
They go. So we had a couple dozen kids ranging from 3 to 17.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
wow, that's a nice
a
span.
bunch of 5-year-olds. Yeah, little ones. Yeah,
real cute kids.
yeah.
Um, so you mentioned about educating that, like, going to these schools and talking to them first about what you're asking them to do and how this is, wrong, and adults have and will continue to ask them to do stuff like this. I had also read, I think it was in the article that we ran, the interview with you, about how your former mentor, I think it was, had said that like you can either be an artist or you can be an educator, kind of like pick one. But it seems to me that this play is a good example, and maybe you feel this way as an artist that you know, many of your plays have focused on Native stories, that it's almost inextricable in a way. Like, so I guess my question is, what do you think the role of education in this play is?
Yeah, I mean, it is, it's impossible not to be educational if you're talking about Indigenous things, because we
Right.
don't get an Indigenous education in school,
Right.
right? And we don't get anywhere. Um, and I mean, we as like the country, I think, the what we were talking about was my mentor, Meritamita, who's a Maori woman who's no longer with us, but she had said to me in my first script, she said, Larissa, you can be an artist or you can be an educator. Some art educates and some education is artistic. But if you try to be both, you'll do both badly. So you have to pick one. So I picked artist because that's what I am. And so even though there is a tremendous amount of education, especially in this play that happens, it's always serving the art. So for me, it's always what makes this an artistically good moment on stage, what keeps us moving forward, what helps the audience have the pressure of the satire and then the release of the humor, and so everything that even when there are educational bits in the play about Thanksgiving, unfortunately it's just because we just don't know. I mean, I'm just telling truths, and in a way that's dramatically useful for these characters, but people
Yeah.
perceive it as very educational because we just don't know these things. We were never taught these things. Native people know a lot more of them than non-Native folks. But even I was surprised at some of these things that I had never learned about Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
And so my job then as a dramatist is to take those things and weave them into the artistic forward motion of the play and make sure it keeps moving in the way I need it to.
Hey, Larissa, if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how you were brought up? As the old
Yeah.
Indians around Michigan, where I'm from, they'd say raised Indian. Were you raised Indian?
No, actually, I wasn't. So I was adopted out very young at 11 months old. My birth father, who's the Lakota side of me, was raising me alone and wasn't able to by himself, and so he had parents who are white, and they'd known my FastHorse family for a long time. They'd worked on the reservation for like a dozen years by then. And so I was raised by a white family, and around, I think it was, between kindergarten and first grade, we moved, to Pierre, South Dakota, to the big city. So off of the
Capital
reservation. My
city,
dad,
isn't it? Capital
it is the
city, right?
capital city.
Yeah.
Yep. And so my dad worked for the state. And so we moved there for his job. And that's where I then went to school. So I was raised off res with a white family that did work really hard to have mentors and elders in my life that were Lakota, which isn't hard to do in South Dakota. But it was for sure for a time. There was a time in my life where I felt very separated and had some shame around that. And then I had some incredible experiences with elders, again, Lakota elders, and that were like, "Ah, Larissa, we're always there with you. Don't worry. You didn't leave us. We didn't leave you. You were just in a different place for a while, but we were always there." And I really have had some amazing
That's nice.
folks
Yes.
now be in my life as an adult, to help me, make sure that I always know I was always part of the Yate, whether I felt like it all the time or not.
Mhm.
And I would venture to say, I can speak for myself.
Mhm.
So I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and
Mm.
what we know about Thanksgiving versus what was taught to us completely different, contrary. And uh, so you wanted to dig into it and really get that message out there, right? That
Yeah, for sure. And now what's awesome is after doing this play and having to make it with four white presenting folks, is that now I have actually 7 plays this year, and all the rest of them have predominantly Native casts, which is really exciting. So it worked. I couldn't crack that before. I just could not get people to cast Native people, and now because of the work of a lot of great folks like people on TV like Sterling Harjo and Ciro
Mhm.
Nealis and all these different folks, now this work has gotten me the recognition that people are willing to invest in my plays and find the Native actors that they need. And so I get to employ dozens of Native actors the rest of this year, which is pretty exciting.
That's
That
awesome.
is really exciting. Seems to be a moment for Native Americans, in a lot of artistic areas. That's great.
Yeah,
So
let's hope it's not a moment.
Great. Well, Native News Online, we'll keep trying to do our best we can, so to make sure that change stays. So
can you talk about Larissa, the play that you're doing there in South Dakota, or
Yeah,
is it under
sure.
wraps?
No. That's the third created in and with Native communities. And this one is with my community. Yay! So we're doing it with Lakota, Nakota, and Dakota people. We spent almost 5 years because of COVID. It was supposed to be 2, but COVID. Talking to hundreds of people and saying, what should we make a story about? What do you want people to know about you? Do you want it told? Where do you want it told? Etc. And we came up with this through all these circles, this play called Wachun that's about a Lakota superhero that's created out of the 4 Lakota core virtues that come to life and are personified as superpowers, and then all end up coming into the central character by the end of it. So it's sort of an origin story of a Lakota superhero. I think we're all Lakota. There might be Dakota. I think not, though. I think sorry, Dakotas. I think we're all Lakota, but we do have a Dakota character, and and so we're out here rehearsing it, and then we're going to be touring the state and going to all the different reservations in South Dakota and several cities, Rapid City, Sioux Falls, Pierre, as well. And we're really excited about it. It's the first time, I've gotten to work at home like this on a big production where we get to bring it to so many different people, and we're really thrilled. If people want to see it where we're touring, you go to cornerstonetheater.org and you can find out where we're touring. And I also wanted to mention, because it won't be too late, if anyone wants to see the play in New York, we have a discount code.
Cool. That's
That's
awesome. that you're
wonderful.
doing that.
That's wonderful. And thank you very much. Thanks, Jenna, and thanks, Larissa. We really appreciate you coming on. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Native Bidaské, and to the families that are suffering from the missing and murdered Indigenous people. Our prayers and thoughts are with you today. And I will be downtown in Grand Rapids at a rally that we will bring recognition. So, Chimigwich, we tune in next week. We'll have another episode of Native Bidaské. Chimigwich.
If you appreciate what we do here at Native News Online, we invite you to donate to support our continued work covering Indian country. You can scan this code with your smartphone or go to the link located below this video to donate today. We greatly appreciate your support. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to scan this code or go to the link below to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to join us again next week for another episode of Native Bidaské. Chimigwech.